I found a strange hotel bill and tracked my wife down to find her with another man on our anniversary. The sweltering heat of the June Phoenix afternoon seemed to penetrate the car windows, making the air inside stifling. But the heat outside was nothing compared to the burning in my chest. I sat frozen behind the wheel of my sedan, my knuckles white with clenched fists, my eyes fixed on a shadowy corner of the parking lot of the Desert Oasis Inn, a hotel whose existence I had not even heard of a week ago. Jessica's white SUV was parked there. There was no mistaking it. But what stopped my heart, what took my breath away, was the sight I'd witnessed a few minutes earlier. Jessica, my wife, the woman I'd been with for 20 years, stepped out of the hotel's side door. She was smiling, the bright smile I'd once loved. But it wasn't for me. It was for the man beside her, who had his arm around her waist, possessively. They stopped for a moment by his black luxury sedan, exchanged a few more pleasantries. Then he opened the door for her before they both got in and sped away, leaving me sitting there, frozen in the empty parking lot under the hot sun. I glanced at my phone, which was resting on the dashboard. The Find My Friends app was still open. The red dot labeled Jessica was still blinking over the location of this damn hotel. A cold, cruel confirmation of what my gut had been screaming at me for the past few hours. Today, June 15th, our 20th wedding anniversary, 20 years, 2 decades of building a life together, sharing joys and sorrows, dreams and disappointments. And this is how she celebrated the milestone. In a cheap hotel room in suburban Scottsdale with another man. It felt like the foundation of my entire life had been mercilessly stripped away. My name is Michael Anderson, but my friends call me Mike. I'm 50. I've spent most of my career in logistics in this sun-scorched valley. My job is to coordinate and manage the supply chain, ensuring that goods get from point A to point B as smoothly, on time, and efficiently as possible. It requires precise calculations, the ability to plan in detail, and, most importantly, to anticipate risks and potential problems. I've always prided myself on being logical, careful, and organized. I thought I would apply those principles to my marriage, to my 2-decade relationship with Jessica. But clearly, I was terribly wrong. I didn't see this incident coming. Jessica, my wife, is 48. We met and married when we were both quite young, full of enthusiasm and great ambitions. She works in marketing and public relations, a job that requires dynamism, skillful communication skills, and a neat and confident appearance. Jessica is smart, sharp, and always knows how to make a good impression on people. In our 20 years together, we have experienced many ups and downs. The difficult early years of building a career, the joy of buying our first house in the suburbs, memorable trips, and even times of disagreement, quarreling, and then making up. We have raised 2 children together, now in college and living away from home, planned our retirement years together, and dreamed of long trips to explore the world. I have always believed that the bond between us is real, strong, and unbreakable. Until last week. It started with a small, seemingly innocuous detail. I was sitting at my computer on a Sunday evening, going through our monthly routine of checking our joint credit card statements. My eyes fell on an unfamiliar charge, nearly $200 charged last Tuesday afternoon at the Desert Oasis Inn in Scottsdale. I frowned. I'd never heard of the hotel, and we had no reason to stay in one so close to home. When I asked Jessica the next morning, she seemed surprised. Desert Oasis Inn? I don't remember. There must be some mistake. Then she added, a little awkwardly, "Oh, or maybe it's a deposit for some client company's conference that I forgot about. Let me check with accounting." She promised to check, but then she trailed off and never mentioned it again. My gut feeling was telling me something was wrong, but I tried to push it aside, not wanting to suspect my wife for no reason. But that hotel bill wasn't the only sign. Looking back over the past few months, I noticed subtle changes in Jessica. She seemed more distant, less forthcoming about work than before. Occasionally, there were long work phone calls in the evening, and she often went out to the balcony or to her private office to listen. A few times she came home quite late, explaining that she had an urgent meeting with a partner or had to handle a media crisis for a client. As a manager, I understand that work pressure can be huge, especially in Jessica's industry. So I tried to be understanding, not to press the issue, even though I felt a little uneasy. The intimacy between us also gradually decreased. She often made excuses of being tired or not in the mood. I told myself that it was probably because of the stress of work or because of her age. I was too trusting or too stupid to not recognize those warning signs. And then came today, our 20th wedding anniversary. I took the afternoon off work, booked a table at the fancy Italian restaurant we both loved. Where we had our first date, I bought a bouquet of red roses, her favorite flower, and wrote a card with loving words from the bottom of my heart. I wanted to surprise her, make her an evening to remember. But around 3 p.m., Jessica called. Her voice was urgent, strained. "Honey, I'm so sorry. There's a big PR crisis with my most important client. I have to go to their office right now, and I don't know when I'll be done. Can you cancel tonight's reservation? I promise I'll be home as soon as possible." Frustration set in, but I tried to sound understanding. "Oh, it's okay. It's important work. Just take care of it. Don't worry about me." But as I hung up, a strong sense of unease settled over me. The unexplained hotel bill, Jessica's slightly strange demeanor on the phone, and a hunch that something was wrong. I did something I never thought I would do. I opened the Find My Friends app on my phone. We'd had it for a long time, mostly to know each other's location in case of emergencies or long trips. I searched for Jessica, and my heart sank. She wasn't at the client office building she'd mentioned in downtown Phoenix. The red dot was in Scottsdale, right near that damn Desert Oasis Inn. Without hesitation, I rushed to my car. Anger and confusion urged me to go there, to see for myself. It was only a 15-minute drive, my heart pounding. And then, I saw her white SUV. A few minutes later, I saw her emerging from the hotel, holding hands with another man, David Chen, a business partner Jessica had introduced to me briefly at his company's year-end party, a married man with children. I vaguely remembered. And now, here I am, sitting in a hot car, watching Chen's car drive away. It all happened right before my eyes. On the 20th anniversary of our vows, that nearly $200 hotel bill was not a mistake. It was not a conference deposit. It was evidence of the beginning of a nightmare, the beginning of the end of everything I had built, believed in, and loved for the past 20 years. I sat there in the car for a long time, trying to catch my breath. The initial numbness was replaced by a cold anger and a pain so deep it felt like it could tear my chest apart. I didn't cry, but something more painful than tears welled up inside me. I started the car, but didn't drive home. I couldn't face the empty house, the roses and the anniversary card lying on the table. I needed time, somewhere to calm down, to sort out the chaos in my head. I drove aimlessly for a while, and then stopped at a small, quiet roadside bar I'd never been to before. I ordered a neat whiskey, the strongest they had, and downed almost half of it in one gulp. The heat burned my throat, but it did nothing to calm the storm raging inside me. Now, in the cruel light of the truth that had just been revealed, all the scattered pieces began to fit together into a painfully complete picture of adultery. The times Jessica said she was going to see her best friend, but her phone was out of coverage area. The credit card expenses for lunches and dinners at restaurants I didn't know, on workdays. The increasing indifference in sex, the refusals with the excuses of tiredness, stress, not in the mood. All were lies. I recall a detail. About 3 or 4 months ago, David Chen and his wife came to our house for dinner. It was a social gathering arranged by Jessica to strengthen our partnership. Chen was very polite, laughing and talking happily, constantly praising Jessica's abilities and professionalism. His wife, a rather gentle-looking woman, seemed to be quiet. At that time, I even felt a little proud that my wife was highly regarded by an important partner. Thinking back now, those compliments, Chen's occasional glances at Jessica when I wasn't paying attention, could they have hidden something else? Could this illicit relationship have started back then, or even earlier? I drained my whiskey, feeling a little more clear-headed. The anger was still there, but my mind told me I needed more concrete evidence before I confronted Jessica. I didn't want her to deny it or turn the tables. I paid and drove home. The house greeted me with a heavy silence. The red roses were still on the dining table, the handwritten anniversary card beside them. They seemed to mock my pain. I headed straight to the small office down the hall, where Jessica sometimes used her old laptop. I turned it on. Luckily, I knew the password. I started digging. Her work email was synced to this machine. I opened my inbox, looking for emails with David Chen. There were a lot of work-related emails, marketing projects, advertising campaigns, but mixed in. I started seeing emails that were more intimate than the typical colleague, personal inquiries, flattering compliments, plans to meet privately to discuss project details on weekends or evenings. I checked my browsing history, nothing suspicious. But when I opened Facebook Messenger, I found a few short chats with David Chen's account, which had recently been deleted. I tried the archived messages, and my heart sank again. There were a few older messages, from months ago, that hadn't been deleted. The content wasn't too explicit, but it was suggestive. Missing you. Have a great afternoon. Can't wait for the weekend. And then I stumbled upon the worst thing. In the Documents folder on my computer, there was a subfolder with the very normal name Sky Harbor Project. But when I clicked on it, it asked for a password. I tried some of Jessica's usual passwords, but they didn't work. I tried the name of her first dog, her mother's birthday. Still no luck. Finally, I tried the street she'd told me about where she grew up. The folder opened. Inside were no project documents. They were a series of photos. Jessica and David Chen, laughing and talking happily in a fancy restaurant, hugging each other on a hotel balcony with a sea view, clearly on some kind of business trip. There were even selfies taken in the hotel room, looking very intimate and close. Based on the dates of the photo files, the relationship had apparently lasted at least 6 months, maybe longer. 6 months of blatant, planned deception. My hands shook as I backed up the entire folder of photos and suspicious emails and messages to a hidden USB drive I always carried with me and sent a copy to my personal backup email address. The evidence was enough. There was no room for doubt. This betrayal was not a moment of weakness, not a passing infatuation. It was a long-term affair, cleverly hidden right under my nose. I turned off the computer, cleaned up all traces of my use. Then I sat down on the sofa in the living room, a room filled with memories of 20 years of living together, and waiting for Jessica to return from her emergency meeting with her lover. The feeling of waiting was heavy, tense like a string about to snap. Anger boiled. Pain felt like it was about to tear my chest, but I tried to force myself to be calm. I would not scream. I would not smash things. I would face her coldly, with the truth and undeniable evidence. 20 years of attachment, even though it ended in bitterness. I still wanted to keep the last bit of self-respect for myself. Around 9 p.m., the familiar white SUV pulled into the garage. The sound of the garage door closing echoed in the silence. A few seconds later, Jessica walked into the house through the side door. She looked tired, but there was also something different, a fleeting satisfaction that she tried to hide. She put her designer handbag on the table and walked over to where I was about to hug her. "I'm home," she said, her voice a little hoarse. "Sorry, honey, work was crazy today. That client—" I gently pushed her hand away and stood up to face her. I looked straight into her eyes, my voice cold and emotionless. "How's work, honey? Are the customers at Desert Oasis Inn very upset?" Jessica's face changed instantly. The forced smile disappeared, replaced by a look of shock and panic. Her eyes widened, looking at me as if she couldn't believe her ears. "What? What are you saying? Desert Oasis? I don't understand." "Oh, I know," I said, my voice flat. "Stop pretending. Jessica, I was there this afternoon. I saw you and David Chen coming out of that hotel. On our 20th anniversary. I held up my phone, the screen still showing her location at the hotel that afternoon. "The GPS app doesn't lie, baby. And neither did that credit card bill from last week." Jessica took a step back, her face pale. She stuttered, trying to find an explanation. "No, it's not like you think. It's just a misunderstanding. We just met there to discuss urgent business because his office was under renovation. He just walked me to the car." "Misunderstanding?" I sneered, a smile that was not at all cheerful. I took the USB drive out of my pocket and plugged it into the smart TV in the living room. I opened the Sky Harbor project folder. A series of pictures of her and David Chen appeared on the big screen. Smiles, hugs, luxurious hotel scenes. "So these are also misunderstandings, Jessica? These business trips? How long has this relationship lasted? 6 months? A year?" Jessica stared at the TV screen, then at me, completely broken. She didn't try to deny it anymore. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. She sat down on the floor, covering her face with her hands and sobbing. "Mark, I'm sorry. I don't know why I did this." Then she launched into the usual excuses I'd heard in similar stories. That she felt lonely because I was always so wrapped up in work. That David cared for her and listened in a way I didn't. That she was just weak. "Enough!" I interrupted, my voice no longer cold but filled with suppressed anger. "Don't try to make me the reason for your betrayal, especially not today. There is nothing in this world that can justify you cheating on me, trampling on our 20 years of marriage, and doing it on our anniversary." I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "I can't go through this marriage anymore. Jessica, it's over. I want a divorce." "Divorce?" Jessica looked up abruptly, her teary eyes wide with panic and disbelief. "No! Mark, please don't. I know I was wrong. Terribly wrong. Please give me another chance. For our 20 years. You ruined those 20 years this afternoon, at that hotel," I said firmly. "There are no more chances. The wound is too deep, especially the betrayal on this day. I can never forget, nor forgive." I pointed to the door. "I want you to pack your things and leave this house. Immediately, or by tomorrow morning at the latest. I can't bear to see you in this house another minute." The scene that followed was a mess of tears, pleading, and bitter reproaches from Jessica. But I was determined. The betrayal on the anniversary was the last straw, the point of no return. I kept my face cold, unmoved by her tears. Finally, I called Jessica's sister, said there was a family emergency, and asked her to come pick up her sister, I didn't want to have any more contact with Jessica in this state. When her sister arrived, her face was also full of shock. I simply said that we were getting a divorce and Jessica needed to leave immediately. I left the two sisters to make arrangements. I went upstairs to the bedroom, closed the door tightly, ignoring the crying and the sound of furniture colliding downstairs. The next morning, when I woke up after a sleepless night, Jessica and her belongings were gone. The house was eerily quiet. The first thing I did was call Ms. Evelyn Reed, a prominent Phoenix divorce attorney whose information I had found online. I briefly explained the situation, emphasizing the evidence of adultery and the time of the incident. Ms. Reed listened attentively and arranged to meet with me that afternoon. Next, I took action to protect my finances. I called my bank and put a temporary freeze on our joint checking and savings accounts. I transferred all of my premarital personal savings and a portion of my recent earnings into a new separate account. I changed all of my passwords for my online banking, credit cards, email, and other important accounts. I didn't want Jessica to have any chance of withdrawing money or causing any more financial trouble. Finally, I called a locksmith to replace all of the locks on my front door and garage. These actions may seem cold, but they were necessary. I had to protect myself. The meeting with Ms. Reed went well. She reviewed the evidence I provided, emails, text messages, photos, and determined that we had a pretty strong case. In Arizona, even though it is a no-fault divorce state, evidence of adultery can still affect property division and other court decisions, especially when it is blatant and emotionally damaging. As in my case, she advised me to stand my ground and ask for a fair division of property that reflects Jessica's contributions and her betrayal. The divorce process was not easy. Jessica and her attorney initially tried to claim a large portion of the assets, citing 20 years of marriage and her sacrificing her career for her family, which was completely untrue. They tried to portray the relationship with David Chen as a close friendship and the hotel stay as a misunderstanding. But the evidence I had, especially the intimate photos and the timing of the affair on the anniversary, made their case weak. Ms. Reed was very tough in the negotiations. Finally, after several months of tense back and forth, we reached an agreement. The house would be sold, and the proceeds after expenses would be split 60-40 in my favor, based on my greater financial contribution and Jessica's infidelity. Investments and retirement funds would be divided similarly. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted justice. The final divorce decree was signed, officially ending my 20-year marriage. After the divorce, I decided to sell the house. It held too many painful memories. I bought a smaller, more modern apartment in another part of Phoenix, closer to work. I started my life over, focusing on work, health, and the friends and family relationships that really mattered. I informed my two children, who were in college, about the divorce. They were initially shocked and sad, but I explained the reasons clearly and honestly, without bad-mouthing their mother, but also without hiding the truth about the betrayal. Gradually, they understood and supported my decision. Our father-daughter relationship became even closer. I cut off all unnecessary contact with Jessica. I occasionally heard about her and David Chen through old acquaintances. I heard that their relationship had gone nowhere after everything fell apart and Chen had trouble with his wife. But honestly, that didn't matter to me anymore. My peace of mind didn't depend on their unhappiness. I started spending more time on myself. I joined a running club and explored the beautiful trails of the Sonoran Desert every weekend. I traveled alone to places I had always wanted to go but never had the chance to. I read books, learned new skills, and found joy in simple things. Time heals wounds, though the scars remain. 2 years have passed since that fateful anniversary. I am 52 years old, single, but not lonely. I feel stronger. more independent, and have a more realistic, insightful view of life and relationships. My 20-year marriage ended in the most brutal way, ruined by a hotel bill and a GPS app on the most sacred day. That betrayal taught me a bitter but valuable lesson. Always trust your instincts, never ignore the smallest warning signs, and most importantly, have the courage to face the truth, even if it breaks your heart. True justice is not about seeing the betrayer pay, but about being able to rise from the rubble, take back control of your life, rebuild your self-esteem, and find happiness on your own terms. The anniversary of June 15th will forever be a sad day in my memory, but it no longer defines me. It is just a closed chapter, reminding me of my inner strength and incredible resilience. And now, I am writing new, brighter chapters in my life.